What's up, everyone? My name is Carolina, and I'm the host of Moving Encounters, and I have the one and only DJ, Sanmarco, and he, along with two others, correct me if I'm wrong, is a host of Cab, and so we're sitting down and just, having a real conversation, a human conversation, getting to really deep dive and get to know him better, his motivations, talk about UFOs, talk about weird things, like whatever. So yeah, I'll stop talking. What's up, DJ? How's it going?
Can I get a amen for
Amen.
Carolina? That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. DJ brings the energy, if you haven't noticed. So DJ, tell us.
Good
Tell
evening,
us what
everybody.
you do. Just tell
I
us all about
am.
you.
I am the host of Calling All Beings, like she said, along with Nathan, Money Nathan, and Deb's. Nathan is the co-creator, and Deb is one of our OGs, one of our originals of the cast of Cab. And then will have guest hosts and so forth, and co-hosts come on and tag up with us, and we love to talk not just UFOs, even though a lot of y'all know me from that, but Bigfoot and paranormal. We had a paranormal guest. They're probably the least genre that we do, but we had one of those about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Mandy Cummings from Ohio, and we had so much fun. And although we don't have a paranormal audience, we just enjoyed that so much, and we were just smiling and laughing and enjoying her stories all the way through. So that's the me as a podcaster. As far as me as a dude, um, I am most known. I come from the U.S. Air Force Special Ops Aviation community. Spent 21 years in service. I worked on the planes for about 8 years and then started flying for the other 13 years. And I am sort of a little bit of a late bloomer. My UFO experience, which was very, very brief, I didn't have kind of a normal childhood. I grew up on a ranch, and I was sort of working as a young kid at the ranch, not at the behest of my parents who told me not to work, but I just loved work and loved horses and stuff. And that is
I
where
love
me
horses
and
and stuff, and my parents also
yeah.
told me not to work. So, I mean, that's actually very specific things, but that's actually amazing. Okay, keep going.
Yep.
That's really cool.
So,
Okay.
so the sighting sort of happened when it was at the close of our tenure at the ranch, and it had been sold, and we were moving from the Hudson Valley of New York, where been a lot of UFO sightings where I grew up. And so a friend and I, who was about 14, so I think we were end of freshman year going into sophomore year in high school, right during the sort of meat of the UFO flap, or maybe the early part of the UFO wave that hit the Hudson Valley. There's 9 books at least written on Hudson Valley UFOs. So essentially, we were down in what looked like a little bit of a valley, and we were walking uphill towards the main road where my house was on that main road but across the street, and the wood line, so your view of the horizon, you would need to look up because the trees were that high. So you being down in that valley, that the horizon was, you were probably a good 15 degrees up looking up. And that's where I saw at least when I saw the UFO and when he saw it, we saw it above that tree line. It could have passed right over our head and we didn't see it until it reached our eyesight. But it lit up we're talking rural rural country New York, where there's not street lights on these
Mhm.
backcountry roads. Probably very similar to, where you're a lot of some of those areas in North Carolina near where you live. And you're just like, oh, it was completely silent, and we're just like, oh, that's a UFO. So
And how'd that make you
um
feel? You know?
so the first things that we talked about was, I'm not going to tell my parents because I don't think that they're not going to believe me. And my dad didn't live at the house anyway. My parents were already divorced. So my mom was at the house, and my father was in the town, but sort of across town, if you will. Or he was kind of like more in the town, and we were in the country outside the town, if you will. So, yeah, I just said, well, we're not going to tell him. So I didn't talk about it for, so I'm going to kind of bridge these two events,
Sure.
but I didn't talk about it for about 30 years or so. It was around 2010 that I reached out to this young man. Wait a minute. Yeah, it was around 2010 when I reached out to this young man on Facebook and was like, "Hey," I called him in the airport. I was walking through the airport in Dallas, and I said, "Dude, did that happen, man? Did?" He said, "Dude, that happened. That happened. We saw that because a lot of UFO, when have people that have a sighting will think that, oh, maybe that didn't happen, and I just dreamed that." But to make a long story short, I went to Florida for 2 years. Right after that event, we moved and didn't do all that well in school or anything. And I moved back to New York to try to make my grades up to my original high school that I had gone to. I don't hide that I was a special ed student. So I was not the smartest kid and didn't work the hardest and kind of didn't think I had a lot of academic acumen. But we had a special ed teacher at the high school, and he, you know, he he pushed us and would advocate for us when we would go out of that environment into class in the regular general population of the school. If we were having issues with a teacher, he would sort of be our advocate. And my grades went up and up and up. And a friend of mine was one of his wrestlers on the wrestling team and said, "You ought to come out for wrestling." And we were such close friends. And I said, "Well, if he thinks I should come out, I probably should." So I started wrestling, and it gave me a lot of confidence in myself. So I'd never played sports before, other than I think 1 year of Little League baseball, maybe. Never played football, never played any sports. Again, remember ranch. I'm thinking most of my life occurred on that ranch and around horses and not around other kids and doing sports and stuff. So I went and did wrestling, and the school really embraced me and made me believe that I wasn't just some, you know, douchebag, for lack of a better word, because in Florida, that's probably what I was those 2 years. I really didn't achieve anything and didn't try very hard and didn't have any good role models. While the kids in New York, they go out and drink their ass off of beer on the weekend, but boy, during the week, they were hitting the books and studying and going to class and showing up at school and doing the right things. And then they knew how to have fun on the weekends. Whereas in Florida, it was sort of all party, no schoolwork. So I had gotten into a college because my grades got so good at that senior year that I got into a college, and I found out that they had football. And I just had this stupid dream that I was going to train over the summer and go and try out for football at college. Lo and behold, I arrive at Dean College in Franklin, Mass. It was then Dean Junior College. So it was 2 years then, and now it's a 4 year school. And my roommate, lo and behold, was from the Hudson Valley, from Westchester, like me, and he was a football player.
And where
So
did you go to
really nice.
college?
When or where?
Where? Yeah.
So is Dean Junior College in Franklin, Mass.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's what a coincidence, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so the to make a long story short, I went and did try out for the football team. I found out they had open tryouts. The coach asked me had I played. I said yes, most certainly I've played football. Never played a down of football in my life. He said, "Do you have tapes?" Because back then kids would have a little duffel with their VHS tapes, and if you wanted to see their highlights, a parent would sort of edit these videotapes to highlight their son's best plays, and they would give it to coaches, and that's how coaches recruited players in the 80s. This is 1985 going into 86. So he said, "Yeah, sure, you can come try out." So came try out, and I was four out of about 10 guys that tried out that made the team. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, I'm a college football player.
What's
So
up?
I'm not going to take you through that. That's a whole story in itself, but it led me to believe that I could be in the Air Force. And all of a sudden, I thought anything was possible that I could do. So, then in the Air Force, and then I got my pilot's license, and then I got this job as a flight engineer in the Air Force, which is a guy that you basically run a bunch of systems in the flight deck, and you sit kind of in between, but behind the pilots in these tactical airplanes, and you run a bunch of the systems and do some calculations. Something that I would never have thought in a million years that I, that kid, that idiot in Florida who was smoking pot and drinking and driving drunk and not doing anything productive, would have thought that I could do. But that whole experience at the end of high school and into college made me believe I could do anything. So,
So the
so that's it.
experience, meaning, you know, the experience, are we tying this back to the experience that you had? Or the
So,
experience as far as like the experience with the connection? Because, you know, with what you've just said, you have you've overcome, you're someone that has overcome adversity. You have navigated through adversity and came out on top of that. And a lot of people don't really get that opportunity, and they don't get um that insight that you have, right? And so I think that message is really, really important. And also, you know, tying this all into the experience that you had. And I know you mentioned like you didn't really want to tell your parents much or anything like that. So when was it after? So I know the first point you said you didn't talk about it for 30 years, right?
mhm,
And then, but something motivated you to reach out to that
that's
person
right.
after so long. So what was it that pushed that
This is
button?
such an easy question. This was David Fravor. So when I saw
Oh,
David
okay.
Fravor from the Tic Tac, I don't know if it was the 60 Minutes interview or if it was the Joe Rogan interview, but I was an MMA podcaster for 10 years before I ever started talking about UFOs. And I was an MMA podcaster at this time when David Frey was talking about his thing, and I was retired from the Air Force. I was working for the Air Force as a contractor, and I decided that, you know what? If David Fravor can talk about this, because I had this whole thing with I was covering the UFC as a quasi podcast journalist, and I was training in jiu-jitsu, and I was friends with a bunch of fighters, and I had this whole several year thing with MMA, jiu-jitsu, and UFC and all that stuff. And I interviewed some of the biggest names in all of the UFC during that time frame.
Nice.
And when David Fravor did that, I came home and said, called. I had two podcast co-hosts that were with me on MMA named Will and Nick, and love these guys to this day, and we still have a private chat that we have. And I said, guys, I'm switching to UFOs. Are you interested to join me? Because these guys were, one of them had a doctorate. They were just really smart guys. The other one's an RN now. Both of them I know from jiu-jitsu. That's how I met these two guys. One of them is Chinese and one of them is Japanese. So they said, "Nah, man, we're not interested." And I said, "All right, I love you guys. I'm going UFOs." And I literally started podcasting about UFOs on my own. And one of the first guests that I had was Andy McGrillen from that UFO podcast. I
Okay.
I
Awesome.
contact and he once he came on the show the second time. So I had him on twice. The second time, we had a caller call into the show because I gave out the Zoom link or something, and it was Nathan.
Great.
So Nathan calls in to talk to Andy. I hear the guy talk and think, this guy is brilliant. And I'm looking at Andy through the screen, and Andy's looking at me, and we're both like, oh shit, this
Romance.
guy is like, yeah, Nathan is just a brilliant speaker. So I just tapped to him in the chat. Hey, I'm going to please follow me on Twitter. I want to speak with you after the show. And we made contact via DM. We set up a phone call and I said, yeah, I think we should do a show together. And Calling All Beings was born.
Okay, yeah. So let's rewind on that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you decided, let's go back to when you're like, okay, I am just going to go rogue. I'm going to do my own podcast, my own thing. You guys, whatever. I'm doing this. So how did you start to dip your feet into the community? Did you already, you know, have connections, or
Yeah.
were you watching behind the scenes and then decided to like all of a sudden one day just like reach out and be like, hey, like how did you
Yes.
get involved and
Yes.
sponge your way in? Okay.
That's exactly what I did. I didn't know anybody. I already had a little bit of a presence on Twitter from MMA. So I just changed my handle, but I still, was following a bunch of fighters, and it was in communication with a bunch of, people involved in jiu-jitsu or UFC or whatever. And then I just started to follow the UFO topic, and some of the I don't want to name the other person that I had on, because the person is a little bit of a villain in the community these days. But at the time that individual came on, Andy came on, I had on somebody that did regressive hypnosis, a girl that I met through yoga, and that was it. If you know me, I'm the kind of person that will just contact somebody and start telling them what I think of them in terms of, their interview style. I mean, that's how I met Vinny. Was just like doing that. I heard Vinny on a space, and we were going to try to have a conversation, and there was somebody there that was just like falling all over themselves to talk to Vinny, and just like couldn't even really talk UFOs because it was this sort of, oh, you're so great and all this kind of stuff. Anyway,
Fan in the room.
but yeah,
Fan
yeah, and
alert.
I will tell you off air who that person was. Vinny
Okay.
probably remembers that, but I won't tell you on air who it was. But in any case, so finally I got contact with him, and I just loved his style. I love that he really has this way with people. People want to talk to Vinny of all backgrounds. They want to engage with Vinny. And frankly, when you meet him in person, that's exactly what you get. When you actually get to meet Vinny, he was exactly that. And so that was it. That's just sort of how I approach it.
Yeah.
So I asked Nathan, I said, dude, who are the top 5 people that you just tell me the top 5 people you want to interview in this genre, and I will go after those people, because Nathan is a little more shy about reaching out. I'm not saying that he won't. He does sometimes, but he's a little more shy. Whereas I'll go and ask anybody. I would ask you too to be on the show. So 2 of the names that he gave me were Exo Academian, who is his current co-host on Liminal Frames, the host of
And we'll get
Point of
those
Convergence.
links and like everything, and we'll put it in the description too. So we'll get those from you, DJ.
Thank you, Lum. And James Indoli, he wanted James Indoli. And so I had already had a little bit of a dialogue with James, because we're from the same hometown, basically. And that's it. That's how that. Then we had gotten a couple of co-hosts. Akashi Chris from the community. Akashi Chris became I think our first co-host, and then because we let her kind of play the background producer role, and then she was on air with us for half the show, and then we got this guy named Kevin. He called himself Greer's Flair, as in Stephen Greer's Flair.
Oh,
Very
interesting.
very funny guy, very artistic guy. And then we found Deb, and we kind of did a trial with with Deb, which was really
Okay.
adorable. And that first time, she's kind of like, just like all the research she'd done, she was kind of like regurgitating all this research. And I was like, all right, we got to get her calmed down in order to get her on there. She has great stuff. And it turns out that Deb is, a phenomenal host, and really big in the community. So that's how Cab came to be.
That's awesome. I love the story. And, there's so many like synchronicities that come into play, I feel like, just in general. But the most important thing is, what do you think makes this topic so interesting when it comes to UFOs? What do you think draws people in, and just, yeah, I mean, for you personally or
Mhm.
just in general?
Well, it I know why I wanted to do the show. As far as So I wanted to do the show because I love what we're doing right now, is having conversation. Interesting, the opportunity to invite people into a topic that has multiple facets, that's unexplained, that we really don't know the answer, but we can have a lot of fun asking and trying to answer questions. So what drew me into UFOs? This is a really good question, and I don't know that my experience was the thing that drew me into it. I just think it was something that I knew. And you had mentioned in the pre-brief, sort of the read ahead for the show, that we would talk about Roswell. I knew that was a lie, and so I knew it was real. And I thought, "Wow, wouldn't it be cool to start talking about this and try to figure some aspects of this out?" Because I know it's real, and I know that the government felt like they needed to hide it, because for our own good and for our faith in their governance, that security is part of governance. You know, you don't pay taxes to an entity that can't protect you. And so in the 40s, it probably didn't seem like a great idea for them to admit that there were a lot of things flying around in our airspace that had complete agency and freedom to
Sure.
fly where they wanted, and there wasn't anything we could really do about it.
Has
So
that
they made the
changed?
decision. It
You
hasn't
know?
really changed.
So has your opinion changed though? Like, do you feel like disclosure now is the time?
Mm. So I don't.
Disclosure, whatever it may mean, people. I know everyone has like their own
Mm.
like don't freak out when I say the word disclosure, everyone. Disclaimer. Let it just let disclosure be what it is to you. All right. Back to our regular.
I'm not. I'm not positive about what the right course of action is. I know that there are a lot of people that want to know, and I saw even when David Grush came out and did the interview with Ross Coulthart, and basically, almost, I'll use that word regurgitated again, all this information that we had heard about, that there were crashed craft that were quite a number. He didn't actually delineate that it was double digit
I
at the
mean, yeah,
time,
big
and
claims.
yes, and that we had recovered biologics, which you could interpret to mean bodies either alive or dead, and that maybe there were agreements made. What? Between our government and some alien entity? That was like, I was sure that was false. That was I had told people I didn't believe that.
Wait,
Now
did
I have
Crush
to
say
entertain
that
that.
there were agreements
He did say
between?
that.
Okay,
He said
I
that in that
did not know
original
that.
Ross Coulthard interview.
Wow,
Yeah, if Vinny's handy, he may be able to confirm that for me. Um,
he's out there
but
somewhere.
so he is. He's behind me in the stars. But so yeah, with all of that, I saw certain show hosts. There were some show hosts that were very jarred by what he said, and I can think of at least three very high profile UFO podcast hosts that were acting like they were not ready to hear that information, and maybe they required more proof. And what is the proof there? I don't know. What I'm not sure what proof is, because for some people their standard of proof is, I need to walk into the hangar and physically go inside and touch the craft. And that level of proof, you'll never meet that standard, not in our lifetimes. And even if you let him do that, they might say, "How do I know this isn't just a dummy? How do I know that this isn't just a piece of sheet metal and that it'll actually fly? How do I know it's a UFO?" So there's the standard of proof is something that I realized this last night in speaking with Nathan and them on cab, talking about providing with these videos, the videos of the tic tac and the gimbal and these other go fast, and providing the data so people can analyze it. There is no evidence you could put out there that everyone is going to believe it, because
Sure.
we're humans and we just don't want to agree on everything. There's nothing that we can all gather consensus on.
That's a really honestly, like that's a really great point. You're absolutely right. We we can't just be like, "Hey, here's a UFO. Everyone come and touch this like it's a side attraction." Like it's not a circus act, right? It's like a big deal. And so you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, disclosure or evidence or proof, whatever, is going to be different things for different people. And even if we were to all of a sudden, one day just wake up, turn the news on, and there's like aliens on the whatever White House for one, like people still then wouldn't necessarily believe that. So I think it all ties back to the experiencers. Like, those are some of the most important people to talk to, because uh, we can't, well, we don't have data, something that's like measured. Where do we go to after that, right? To understand more. And it's, like you said, to like be a human being, talk about it, talk to people, listen to their experiences. I mean, that opens up, and tell me what you think about that, opens up a whole new area of things. But so, as far as anyone that you've talked to in your podcast in cab, is there any particular guest that stands out in your mind that, you know, kind of had that light bulb moment for you when it comes to maybe not looking at things so nuts and bolts, but considering other aspects that we may not be able to measure in that sense?
Well, what's interesting is one of my friends contact me. I'm telling him I'm on air with you. One of my friends from Bigfoot. So there's so many of those that have been on, but let me, if I can answer, I actually want to answer it, but I want to continue on your earlier point, which you were asking about disclosure and what level of disclosure. And I want to make it very clear my position on this, because people will think, because of my affiliation with the Air Force, with the government, government civilian, government contractor, you know, all that, where I work now in the industry, aerospace industry, what I think there should be disclosure. I don't know what level. I'm not qualified to say what level. I believe that that there should be some level of honesty and disclosure that the most amount of people can handle, but I don't know what exactly that is. I know something that hopefully would satiate you and Vinny and UFO Thinker Frank and myself and Nathan and Andy and Deb, if you get what I mean. But I don't know how far that it should go. I think that is something that is for a lot of people to discuss, and people who
Hmm.
understand the psychology of the nation better than I. And I know that those people are probably being consulted. What I do want to say is the only way I believe that full, complete disclosure where everybody's believes this is a real thing, there's only one sort of subgroup, if you will, that can decide that, and that is the phenomenon itself. If the phenomenon had decided
Yeah.
to bring one of their big triangles and hover over New York City during the daytime, and Los Angeles and Dallas and Minneapolis, St. Paul and Seattle, whatever, and Doha, right? And Barcelona for our Spanish friends here. So if something like that happened, it would be irrefutable evidence that these exist. And I think that's probably the only way that you're going to get a consensus where you could go to anybody on the street and go, and this is real. And they say yes. And is that what
Yeah.
really people want? Because at that point, we've been invaded. So I don't know. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's the best. I'm not sure
No,
that
I
that's
get what
the
you're
best
saying. I
thing,
think
right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a shift of consciousness. It's like a collective community of people. So, say that we're all sitting outside at the park, and everyone, and I'm like, the sky is blue, but everybody else there is like, no, the sky is not blue, it's purple. Then I'm like, well, it must be purple. So, it's kind of the same for this, like
Yep.
we may all, you know, behind the scenes believe, if you want to use that word, or know, or with, if you're an experiencer or not, or whatever way this has touched your life, it's almost like you already know inside. It's like you already have that knowing, but
Sure.
it's that's something that's like already imprinted in there. But it becomes more than that after that point. It becomes more. It's almost like I don't need it for me. I need it for everyone else as well. And so that's a good point. Like it's going to take probably more than just tangible physical evidence that you can touch and hold and cradle. It's going to be more than that, and it's going to take like a lot of people. But
There's one other thing you mentioned, experiencers, and I just want to touch on that, because we will have groups of people and there'll be these experiencers, and then you have these government people. And the experiencers are pissed off because you have these government folks like Lou Alzondo and David Grush and Christopher Mellon and Jim Semivan, and we could probably go on naming people, and people are looking to them to affirm what's happened. And there, here you have a group of people saying, wait, this has happened to me. I have been through this. I have seen it. I've felt it. I've touched it. It's touched me. And so, what I want to say to those people is they are, an, I mean, as important a resource. If you want to make a 1A and a 1B, I don't care. You know, government people that have been vetted, and then other people who maybe just work a nondescript job, and whatever their career field is, but they've experienced a phenomenon firsthand and maybe more than once. Those people are, in a way equally important, and they both serve a function, and they both need to understand. So when a certain scientist who I won't name said to Dave Scott, I wish the UFO community and experiences would just get out of the way. No, dude, no, they shouldn't get out of the way. Those people, in some cases, have PTSD and have suffered trauma at the hands of the phenomenon. And some of them have just experienced it a bunch of times and want people know, damn it, it's real. Okay. And on the other hand, the experiencer community needs to understand that unfortunately people are racked and stacked and vetted. Okay. So if I'm somebody who works at, the gym, like where I go to crunch, or the dollar store, and then on the other side, there's somebody like, let's say it was, Jim Semivan, career CIA officer, has been through an exhaustive background check, multiple polygraphs, because they'll call you in for a lifestyle polygraph. You don't even know that you're going to get called in. And they're extremely intrusive and invasive because I've been through them. Okay. People look to people like that to say, Congress is going to look at that and say, okay, David Fravor, fighter pilot, graduated, went to Marine Corps, then ended up going to Annapolis and getting his degree and graduating and becoming a Navy fighter pilot and a Top Gun pilot and an Air Wing commander. And then people are going to put weight behind that. Whether you like it or not, society will judge their word as more important. Let's just say with me that I worked at the gym or the dollar
Of
store.
course.
It's
I think,
just
and that goes
you.
back all the way back to like,
Yes, it's just
credibility is going to
reality.
be, yeah, I mean, you're going to have
That's
more
reality,
credibility
man.
for
Yeah.
for for our servicemen versus a civilian. I mean,
A,
that's just the way it's been.
a police. What if it's a police captain or somebody in NYPD, a precinct, and they call that guy? That guy would get called into Congress to testify before I would, because I work at the dollar store or I work at the movie theater or I work at the fitness center.
Sure, yeah.
It's not it doesn't mean that that person's better than me. It means that they have gone through more checks and balances to assure that they're a person that's
Mhm.
credible. Does that mean
Yeah.
there aren't liars that are in those communities, in the military and in government and in three-letter agencies and police
Yeah.
forces? No, there are plenty of
Yeah.
liars there too. But by and large, they have cleared a lot of hurdles. Whereas somebody who hasn't been through that, unfortunately, I still value their, if that people, if I get to meet that person and I have a one-on-one and they tell me they have an experience, I don't give a damn what their career is. I
Yeah.
couldn't care less. If I get that feeling this person is being forthright, I believe that person. And I don't need to do a background check on them to believe them. But unfortunately, society at large is going to take the word of those. So we need both. We need these government guys and three-letter agency guys that tell us this is real, and I have this sort of evidence, and I have seen this, these programs. And we also need experiencers, and their
That
time will come.
yeah. That's awesome. I love it. Very well said, DJ. That's, that's a really good point, and I'm glad that we hit on those things because yeah, I mean, you've heard this like all the way back from where you can go into the archives even and do like a deep dive and all the way back to Project Blue Book where, you know, they're even talking about this very thing about credibility and what we should look at, what we shouldn't, what word means more than the other. And so yeah, it's good to, I think, you know, make a shift maybe this year into having both sides of the stories heard. So leading into that, as a last question before I kind of let you, I want everyone to know where to find you. What would you like to see a, change this year about the conversation? And I mean it like, what would you like to see change from a perspective of podcasters in this topic? Like,
I,
what would you like to see change? Any shift at all? And what would you like to see change just in general in society with this entire thing?
I don't have a personal thing I want to see other podcasters do because I think they should do what they want to do, what's authentic to their show. If it's authentic to your show to talk about other shows and blabber and act like an idiot and not really bring information to the table, but just try to sort of monetize picking on other people's shows, then, I think you're a moron. And I would tell you that to your face, whomever you are. But other than that, I think podcasters should just keep doing what's authentic to them with their show. It's kind of like Joe Rogan would say, be yourself, but just don't be yourself if you're an asshole. He would say something. He has some sort of a line like
He's
that that's
great.
really,
Yeah, he's
yeah, be,
amazing.
be you, but don't be you if you really suck. He would say things like that. So I think podcasters should really just be authentic and do the show that they want to do, and the numbers will either come or they won't come in terms of listeners and follows and likes. But the main thing is if you're doing it and you're enjoying it and you're loving what you're doing, which I do, then I I don't go home and go, "Oh man, I wish I had gotten, this many more subscribers today." Or
Sure.
follows or likes, because we're not a big show, by the way. I mean, if you look at our subscribers and all that and our followers, we're not that big. And that's okay. We're having a blast doing it. And if all of us are smiling at the end of the show, then I've achieved my personal goal because I didn't get in it as a business. Other people are are doing that, and I think that's awesome because they have the time, the energy, and they've chosen to put their focus on doing it that way. And I think that's great. There's no reason that they shouldn't be absolutely compensated for what they are putting on air, because what your show monetarily is worth is whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
Mm.
So if people are willing to give you Patreon subscribers and super chats and all that, by all means, I mean, that we're a capitalist country, man. Go have at it and enjoy it. So I'm just telling you what I'm doing it for, and I think everybody just needs to do the show that is authentic to them, and then everything's going to come, because you can't really force it
Right.
to happen. And if your boyfriend, your fiance Vinny is a perfect example. Vinny just goes and does Vinny, and you know what? It turns out people love Vinny. that's that's the moral of the story.
I hope so. That's good.
They
But
do. He's
either
just
there's
very resonant.
always though, going to be that person. Like either way, you're as a podcast person, whether you have a million or who cares, like 100 doesn't matter. Like there's still going to be that 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 50 or out of 10 that's going to have something to say. And like that's what we do. We put ourselves out there on a regular basis, and it's worth it. And so,
So if someone's not having a good time, unfortunately, they may see Vinny being successful. They may see me yucking it up on air and having fun. And if they're not having a good time, that might piss them off and cause them to say something. It's just like, you probably had this happen where you walk in and into a bar and you're with your boyfriend and some guy's there and that guy starts eyeing you up and he's pissed off because he's by himself and he wishes he was with you. So he might go over and try to start something. So that happens, but we're not in it to I don't focus on the negative. I just focus on the positive. We've made enormous amount of friends through here. I met you. I could go on probably like a 15-minute just naming names of people I've met and have their phone number or have their email. And, because some of them, not everybody is going to give you their number. Some people just, they may DM you or chat you, but I've made so many friends as a result of being here. So if I were to say something to the community, because you said, talk about what the podcaster should focus on, and then also with the community. And I think the community, what you should, I shouldn't say what you should. I'm not here to say what you should do. You should do what you want to do. But my feeling is enjoy and celebrate the friendships that you make. That's what's going to endure for as you go on in life and you age. It's friendships that are the most important thing, because ultimately no one's going to care, what one up you got on somebody on a Twitter beef or argument,
Yeah.
or shit that you tried to stir up because it seemed like the cool housewives, real housewives of Twitter kind of thing to do. It's really that you can make friends here that are real, lifelong, in-person friends, that
Yeah.
when you see these people you have such a good feeling. I think that's what we can get out of the community. And while we're at it, we can ask all these questions about the phenomenon and just kind of try to figure out what's going on and have fun with it, because nobody knows.
Right. And we will, we still have a full year ahead of us. So I'm really excited to see how this entire year is going to go. Last year was
Hmm.
pretty phenomenal. Phenomenal, I guess I'll say. But yeah, I mean, we should totally at the end of the year connect and then
Hmm.
have like a look back at this and what happened and what the hell is going on, and just to see, because a year is really a short time, but it's a
Yeah.
telling time. So, um, well, look,
Well,
DJ, go ahead.
one thing I want to say, love, is if I could, one thing, if I could see happen that I would want to have happen, I hate to say use the community, but in the subject or the topic, is that more whistleblowers would come out, support David Grush, say, I've had an experience too, go appear before a committee, come forth and make, if it's appropriate, make an IG complaint if that's applicable, but come forward and support what he's doing. And the more people that do that, there's strength in numbers. I realize some of you guys and gals out there are trying to protect a 401k and a retirement, so it's not going to be me that's going to tell you to try to forego that. But if I had my druthers, it would be great to see people come out and support David, so that he's not out there sort of on his own, standing alone, letting people just try to pick him apart. The more people that come forward, especially that are relevant now, well, we've seen people come from the past, obviously, like Robert Salas, and other people, and Richard Doty and others, that have experienced things in the 60s and 70s and 80s, which is awesome that they've had the courage to come forward. But we need people that have just come out of programs now, or that have current knowledge, and it's harder for them to deal with when people have that sort of relevance and resonance today, in today's the programs that are ongoing today.
No, absolutely. And hopefully we'll see more whistleblowers come out this year, with everything that's been going on with Arrow, and now the shift from Kirkpatrick to another director. We're going to see a lot of cool stuff coming out from them. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, you know my humor, so you know what I mean by that. But so we'll see what happens, DJ. But other than that, okay, where can we find you? What's going on next? When are you coming on Disclosure Ladies live? This is Moving Encounters, but when are you coming on Disclosure Ladies
Well, sure.
live?
I'd be more than happy to come on whenever you like. You just let me know. I love going. I love talking about the topic, so it doesn't matter to me if I'm on my show or somebody else's show, or on the phone with Vinny when he's like, "Man, how do I get rid of DJ off the phone?" I just I just love talking about the topic. I really do. So whether it's Bigfoot or paranormal or UFOs, I am just as happy to talk about Bigfoot as I am to talk about UFOs. Sorry
Oh,
if for the UFO heads out there. I am at call underscore all underscore beings. The show is at calling beings on Twitter, now known as X. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Elon Musk, because Twitter just has become part of the lexicon, and now we all have to say X. And people are like, man, you
right.
talking about ecstasy, homie? But anyway, you finna go to a rave. But No,
Just a
not today.
space, just a
Yeah,
virtual
just
space that I
yeah,
hang out in.
exactly.
Not that
Um,
virtual space.
we're on YouTube, of course. We're on Apple, Spotify, and all the podcasts. Next up is Dr. Jeff Kripal of
You heard
Rice
it.
University and holder of the key to the what is it called? Archives of the Impossible
There you
down at
go.
Rice University. And Dr. Jeff Kripal was so kind and so caring when he came on last time because somebody was having a little bit of one of our co-hosts was having a little bit of an emotional episode about paranormal that he had experienced and been traumatized.
Oh
And
no.
Dr. Kripal went into therapy mode and it was beautiful. And
Oh
so we
wow.
love Dr. Jeff.
Nice. Well, I may need him because I just watched The Conjuring. The
No,
Conjuring.
no.
Well, Vinny made me watch it,
Yeah.
and so we watched it. And let's just say I'm like, I can't sleep without the lights on
Yeah.
now. But like I just don't want to go down like that. So yeah, there's also The Conjuring 2, which maybe
Yeah.
we'll just watch that and I'll freak myself out a little bit more.
Gutsy
But
girl, back for more.
so I may need that contact after that. So I'll hit you up.
Dr. Jeff, we got another one for you. Carolina.
It's like 911, cab 911 calls. Or I don't know if that's funny or not. Sorry if you've ever had to call
And
911, but like,
actually, it's funny. Cab has done some interventions with people. Every member of Cab, Deb, Nathan, and myself, have done phone calls with members of the community, sometimes in sort of in the middle of the night. And it's something that we're not hesitant to do again. If somebody needs an ear and somebody to listen, Deb is the only one of us that's a professional in this,
mm,
but we've all done it and we're proud to and happy to do it again. So
that's amazing.
reach
I
out
love
to
it.
us if you want to talk to somebody.
That's what's up. Well, you guys, you have heard it all here. I'm so happy to have you, DJ.
Thank you so
Um,
much for the
no,
invitation.
really, thank you for being here, for your time. You guys check out all of the information if you want to get in touch with DJ, if you want to check out Cab, if you want to anything at all, everything we've mentioned, we're going to put it in the links below. And then, yeah, we'll be back with more DJ, of course, on Moving Encounters, Disclosure Ladies, all that cool stuff. But yeah, thank you so much, DJ. You moved us. We love you.
Namaste.
Pizarro.
Hashtag Bizarro. Hashtag Will Shakespeare.
Pizarro and Pizarro. Love you guys. Next time, I will see you guys next time on another episode of Moving Encounters. Next episode, we're going to have Kelly Chase on, so that'll be nice.
Oh, man. She is so brilliant. You guys are going to like that so
What?
much better than me.
Oh my gosh, no,
She's
DJ.
brilliant, man. I love Kelly Chase. She's so smart. So
Is
that's going to
isn't
be good.
she?
Yeah.
Like, goodness
Yeah.
gracious. Like,
She's a
isn't she?
brilliant
Yeah.
orator, brilliant thinker. Yeah.
My goodness. We're
I
gonna get
admire her.
definitely. I do too. Like
Yeah.
we're like tell me all of your ways. But anyways, we're gonna have to definitely. I'm gonna do my due diligence there and just really just ask all the Sorry, Kelly, if you're listening to this, but like all the tough questions. I just like fan of her work and she really gets into it. So
You're going to do
uh,
great. I
but I
know
only
this.
do, I only have the greats on Moving Encounters, as you can see from the lineup. Wah! So, okay, I just picked up my accent from Vinny, but
I, I just picked up my accent.
me accent. But I love it. I love it so much, DJ. Thank you. This has been probably one of the just like I don't know, most humorous, just fun episodes that I've had. So I thank you so much. Hang out after this, and we will see you next time on episode 6. Bye, everybody.